Have you ever been sewing along and come to a pattern instruction where you thought, do I really need to do this? Is this step 100% necessary? Or worse yet, you follow that step that you don't know if you really need, get to the end of your project and realize that was a complete waste of time. Today, I'm going to share my November makes with you, and I'm going to go through some of the pattern instructions that I decided to skip and why, and my own improvements to make these patterns better. So keep watching. Hi, I'm Tony, and this is So Lounge. I'm super excited we're hanging out together today. Now, the makes for November were actually the overflow from October, which I did not get done due to a variety of reasons. You can go check out the video. I'll put a link in the description below. Now, one of the patterns I was working with that I finally got sewn in November was McCall's 8143. It is a fleece pullover. I did view B minus the elastic in the sleeves and the hem. So it's a half zip, it's got a little stand collar, pretty straightforward. And if you missed the video with me finishing it, this is what it looks like. There were a few things I did not do because this is anti-pill fleece from Joann's. And the first thing I decided I was going to omit was adding interfacing to the collar. This is already thick. You don't need to go through the hassle of trying to get interfacing to stick to fleece, possibly having a major meltdown, and then just having to fight with it and it be even thicker than it already is. So this is what the collar looks like. It's got a nice stand to it. It is firm, but you don't need interfacing to achieve that. So that's the first thing I just decided to skip based on my fabric. Now, the fabric recommendations for this pattern include fleece, which is what I use, sweatshirt fleece, and minky fleece. So depending on the type of fabric you're using and its weight, you may want to use interfacing. Minky's a little bit softer, so maybe in that instance you would want to do the interfacing in the collar, but not with the anti-pill fleece. So the next thing I chose to skip, which I really think looks so much better, is the way that they wanted you to put in the collar. So to put in the collar, they wanted you to fold under this bottom edge and then go back in and stitch it. And I'm assuming that was probably by hand. It doesn't really specify in the pattern. But what I did that I think looks so much better, Clementine has come to hang out because, you know, she loves some fleece. What I thought was better was I just kept it its regular length, kept the 5/8 inch seam allowance on it, and sewed it up at the top. And then I just stitched in the ditch from the outside to catch that on the inside. Then I just went back in and trimmed it out because that's the beauty of fleece. It's not going to ravel, so you can do that. And I think it gave a really nice finish on the inside of the neck with the collar. It was a lot easier than having to do pressing and folding and then going back in and hand stitching. Much easier to just do it that way. It looks really nice from the outside. You don't even know that there's another stitch line in there. And then to really finish the collar and make it look sharp, I decided to do a stitch line across the top edge of the collar. By doing that, it kept the fleece from poofing out. So if you've ever worked with fleece and ever tried to make a collar, it's a little puffy at the top. And since I was getting ready to stitch down the edge of my zipper to finish that, I figured why not just go around the collar first, then go down around the zipper and just have one continuous line, and it just would look nice and sporty, which is what I ended up doing. Now, at the time I was making this, I was wearing a fleece zip from Columbia, and that's the way that they finished it too. So it just had this nice extra stitch line. It keeps in context with the sporty look of the fleece, but it also makes your garment look so much nicer because it doesn't have that weird sleeve or collar puffing going on. So those two things are things I did not follow the instructions, and frankly I think it looks a lot better. Now, once again, if you're using a different kind of fabric, you may want to follow the instructions, but I really think this is a better solution to this and makes the whole thing go a lot faster. Let's see, was there anything else in this that I did not follow? Oh yes, so I didn't put elastic in the sleeves because I don't like elastic in my sleeves. and I just folded it over, did a double stitch on it, and then just trimmed out the excess sleeve allowance on the inside. That's exactly the same way that I finished the hem. Everything looks nice and neat. We've got the double stitch line down there, so it still looks very professional. Now, I'm going to put this on because I did not try it on in my other video, so bear with me if the mic gets caught. There we go. It's too big, as you can see. It's about a size too big. As I've mentioned previously, this was the large size pattern, which is a 16-18. I'm kind of between a 14 and a 16 in patterns. Just kind of depends on what it is. Obviously, I should have gone with the medium, which was the 12-14 sizing. I will do that again. But this is super cozy. It does look nice, even though it's obviously too big. I put this on and asked my boyfriend if I looked fat, and he goes, "No, you don't look fat. It just looks like it's too big for you." So I will not be wearing this out in public, but it's perfect to just lounge around the house if it gets a little cold. And I still really like it. It's a good design. I like my modifications. I would definitely recommend trying this pattern if you want to make this kind of a fleece half zip pullover, and you'll be pretty happy with the end results. If you like sewing tips and pattern workarounds, be sure to subscribe so you never miss a stitch. Moving on to the next make, I finished these flannel pajamas for my sister. I did not have time to redo mine, but they are on the list to get done by next week, hopefully. If you don't recall, this is McCall's 8063. I will put links for all the patterns in the descriptions below so you can go check them out and maybe sew them with some of the tips that I'm giving you today. So if you recall from the October makes video, these pajamas were enormous. I originally made my sister's in an extra large, then I cut it down to the large, made my own. They were comically oversized. And pretty much unwearable because they just weren't going to be comfortable to sleep in being that enormous. The problem is that the large was the smallest that came in this envelope, so I used it and cut down my sister's pajamas to the large, which she did try on mine and they fit, but she wanted the butterflies, so that's what we went with. I'm just going to cut off 5/8 of an inch on the seam allowance on these pajamas and hope that works. Fingers crossed. We'll see what happens. So this pattern is very straightforward. It is 2 fronts, 2 backs, and that's it. A couple of things that I did differently when I made them this time. Originally, the pattern said to use twill tape for the ties, for the drawstring. The twill tape was really flimsy, and I was looking at some of my Old Navy pajamas, and they had like actual fabric, like self fabric, folded over, stitched at the bottom, tied in knot ties. And so I figured, let me see about doing that. But then I decided that I was just going to cut off the selvage of this fabric and use that instead, which has turned out pretty nicely. You can see part of the butterfly print on it. I didn't have to do the extra sewing of making that whole tiny band. So that did speed up the process. The other thing I changed from the pattern instructions, originally the pattern instructions just had you leaving this center front seam open a little bit, and you just fed the twill tape through that and then pulled it out. The problem with that is it was hard to get your pajamas cinched because there wasn't any tension between either side of the drawstrings. And so what I did differently this time around is I put in some buttonholes. So to do that, you have to mark them before you put in the waistband. So I basically sewed the front pieces together, then put in some buttonholes up in the waistband area, and then went back, made the waistband, put in the tie, and now we have pajamas. These are not quite finished because I have to get my sister to put them on so I can hem them. You know, she's a lot taller than I am, so, and she wants them finished with elastic. So just one more step I need to do, but basically they are done. This is the large size. They do look nice. I'm happy with the way they turned out, and I'm looking forward to making my own pajamas coming up soon at some point in December. So I think I'm going to probably use the selvage on this as well as the drawstring, just because it's a little bit easier. It speeds up the process, but it also looks nicer, and it's a little bit heavier than twill tape. And I will continue and use the buttonholes as well for the reasons I have already mentioned. Have you ever skipped steps when you were sewing a pattern? Or maybe came up with your own steps to make that pattern even better? Let me know in the comments below. Last but not least, I made not one, but 2 pleated skirts using McCall's 7022, and obviously I made version B. Now, this is one of those instances where some of the pattern instructions just seem to be really long and overly complicated and unnecessary. But the first time I made this pattern in this purple plaid, I did follow the directions. And one thing that they wanted you to do was draw all these lines, which you can still see the red lines inside of there because they wash out. And then they wanted you to go in and match the lines, baste in the pleats, do all of this work. And I did that, and it took about an additional hour to go in and do all of that. And I don't know why, because it didn't seem to make a difference, and I ended up sewing my pleats the wrong way. So like darts, pleats should be going out away from your body, and these are all going towards the middle of my body on the front and the back. So somewhere along the way, I folded them wrong while I was doing all this basting and other stuff, and I don't know what the point of it was. But I'm happy with the skirt, even though the pleats are going the wrong way. I actually didn't notice when I wore it for Thanksgiving, but it's super cute. It looks cute on. I will put it on in a second, but this is the skirt. So this is the first version. I'm very happy with the way that the plaid all lines up. I did take extra time to match the plaid on the pattern pieces to try and get it as straight as possible. It does look good. It's not going to be perfect because of the pleats, but it looks very, very close, and that's good enough. I just made this skirt yesterday and feel very accomplished, so I wanted to share that with you because yesterday I made a pie and this skirt. And I went to a party last night, and one of my friends asked me like, "Oh, how was your day? What did you do today?" I was like, "I made a pie and a skirt." And everyone was like, "Wow, I feel like I did nothing with my day because I didn't do either of those things." But this skirt took about 4 hours to make, probably about 3.5 because I had to keep going and checking the pie while I was sewing. Say about 3.5. I did skip the basting, pleating nonsense that the pattern wanted me to do. I went through all of that, did not see the point in the first skirt, so I decided I'm going to skip it and save some time and get my skirt sewn. I am happy with the way this turned out. Once again, the plaids look pretty good front and back. Pretty matchy. I did take the time with this fabric as well to do that. If you're making a plaid skirt, I would say try and do that. It's worth the effort in the end. These pleats are going in the right direction. So you can see that when I hold this up, the pleats are going out instead of like these pleats where they're going in. But that's okay. I still love my purple skirt. I really like this one too. One thing I messed up a little bit on this skirt, when I put in the zipper, I put it in right to the top of the skirt and did not leave a space for hook and eye. So knowing that, I put the zipper in a little bit lower, and I've got to go in and put my little hook and eye at the top to get that to close. When these pattern instructions always call for a regular zipper, I always use an invisible zipper. I think it's a lot neater for it to just go in the seam, and it's a lot easier to sew once you know how to do that. If you don't know how to sew an invisible zipper, I will put a link in the description below and right up here, so you can go check out that video. I take you step by step on putting in an invisible zipper. Trust me, once you learn how to do it, you will love it and do it forever. So this is the purple skirt. You can see how the pleats kind of pop out a little bit. It's super cute. This is a size 16. I did make it this way because I wanted it to be a low-rise yoke. That is the bonus of using a yoke, is that you can get it lower without having to do a whole bunch of dart and waistline adjustments. So If you want a higher waisted skirt, you could just always make it in a little bit smaller size. If I made this in a 14, it would probably be like up here, but it's a 16, so it's nice and cozy. I did make the shorter version, so by dropping the yoke, the hem is right at my knee. So that's what this one looks like. I'm gonna try on the other one real quick to show you how the pleats should look. This is the other version with the pleats sewn correctly. As you can see, the pleats go out towards the side seams in the back. They come around, it goes flat, and then it comes around to the side seams. And this is how the skirt's supposed to be sewn. Honestly, I did not even notice that the pleats were going the wrong direction when I wore the purple skirt to Thanksgiving. I just enjoyed that they were cute and pleated. I love pleats. I love a pleated skirt, and I plan to get some good wear out of these this winter with some boots and sweaters. I think it'll be super cute styling. Let me know how you would style these skirts in the comments below. And honestly, I don't think it's worth it to go through the extra steps of the marking the pleats and then basting them in place. It's just a lot of effort, and it's probably why I was so caught up in that I did my pleats the wrong way on the purple skirt. So don't do that. And if you have 3.5 hours, you too can make a pleated skirt. That did not include cutting any of the fabric. Everything was cut out when I started, so that was my sew time in addition to making pie. So if you've enjoyed this video, you are going to love this one.